What up, YouTube? It's your boy M. Dot back here with another. You feel me? And as y'all can see in today's video, we are watching more animated horror films. You feel me? And as y'all can see, we are definitely watching a different creator, MJV Animations. This was recommended by my boy. You know what I'm saying? And feel free, you know what I'm saying? If y'all have any recommendations for me to watch, some real scary ones, like really crazy scary ones, just put it down in the comment. You could also on my Twitch or X, or whatever it's called now. I want to put an email in there in my bio for y'all to send the videos to. But yeah, so we about to check this out. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so just again, make sure I'm still gonna get stuff this weekend. I'm definitely gonna go searching for the lights. Like I'm gonna go searching for the lights for the room, so you can set the mood. Yeah. But other than that, and I'm still working on the name for us. You know what I'm saying? For all y'all, for us, for the supporters. I'm still working on that name, and yeah. So just make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let's get straight into the vid. All right, let's see.
The first thing that was weird that day was a car horn. It kept blaring somewhere across the apartment complex. We tried to ignore it at first, but it just wouldn't stop. I looked up from the basketball in my hands and glanced over at my friend Tyler. We'd been wasting a Sunday afternoon behind the buildings, shooting at a bent rim that somebody had bolted to a utility pole years earlier. It was a sleepy weekend in Kirksville. Half the university students were gone from winter break, so the neighborhood was extremely quiet. Smoke drifted up from some of the houses down the road. It was hard to miss, a lazy gray column drifting over the rooftops. Tyler joked that another junker had caught fire or something, and that wasn't unheard of around the housing complex. We wandered toward it with half a dozen other kids. Teenagers in a small town, structure fire. This was big league entertainment. The closer we got, though, the more we saw. A woman was yelling into her phone while someone assured her that the fire department was on their way. Thick black smoke was rolling from a car in the parking lot, and flames had begun licking up the side of an apartment building. The air smelled like burning plastic and gasoline. "You think somebody's inside?" Tyler asked. But before I could answer him, a window shattered. Everybody flinched and took a few steps back. Glass then rained onto the sidewalk as flames curled through an opening. More neighbors poured out in slippers and coats thrown over their pajamas.
Just to pause real quick, so this is like one of the first times where I have no idea where this is going. Like I don't know what's about to happen. I can't really even make up in my head what made the fire. Like what's going on? I'm lost right now. I'm lost. So this about to be a good one. I can tell.
Nobody really knew what was happening. Had somebody set this? Was this an unattended accident? Was there anybody inside? So many questions, but nobody expects murder. A man suddenly stepped out from between two apartment buildings. He looked guilty, and I can't think of a better word to describe him. His clothes were stained dark. From where I stood, I couldn't tell with what. His hair was wild. His face was red. He was breathing like he'd just run a marathon. He wasn't yelling or freaking out, and he definitely wasn't concerned with the building that was on fire beside him. He held something in each hand, and for 1 second I thought they were pieces of firewood that he'd come to stoke the inferno with.
Gloves.
He was staring bullets into us. Then somebody shouted, "Hey, stay back!" The man smiled, lifted the firewood, and then tossed them at us. It spun through the air end over end until it splattered just a foot away from us. I didn't know what I was looking at until the wet smack happened at my feet. People went crazy all around me. The object bounced onto the pavement, and there was a hand attached to it. Was it a prop? A mannequin?
Bro ripping off people's arms, hands. Okay, so bro definitely did that fire. I'm just gonna call it now. I think bro.
Arm? A million different options whirled through my brain, but none of them explained the blood and gore I was now looking down at. The older man staggered backward, looking down at himself. His face went pale as he took everything in. "Oh my God, that's a real arm!" somebody screamed.
Yeah, it's
Call the
real.
police. I think this guy killed somebody. The neighborhood went insane. People scattered like cockroaches. A mother grabbed both of her children and sprinted for home. Then somebody vomited in the grass next to me. A college kid tripped over the curb trying to backpedal. Every instinct in my body screamed to run, but I couldn't move. My legs were locked in place. That man still had another arm. He cocked it back like a javelin thrower.
Yeah,
He hurled it like a spear,
people's
the
arms.
fingers arcing through the sky toward us. It hit the sidewalk and slid beneath the parked car. And that was enough to snap me back to reality. Tyler grabbed my sleeve and started pulling. He'd woken up too. Dude, run!
Yeah, I'd have been going.
And we sprinted. There was no real deciding where to go, just pure flight. We ran until our lungs gave out, ducking behind another apartment building before collapsing in the grass. My heart hammered so violently I thought I was having some kind of spasm. What was that? Tyler said. I couldn't answer him. I kept seeing human fingers and my stomach started to roll again. We peeked around the corner and police cruisers screamed into the complex from the main road. Officers piled out before their cars had even stopped moving. They shouted commands to the man, weapons drawn. This was pretty serious. The man had no interest in running though. He casually strolled back into the apartment building and disappeared from view. Firefighters arrived a few seconds later, stretching hoses toward that growing blaze. Thick smoke now poured from multiple buildings, and another vehicle had caught fire. It felt less like our neighborhood and more like a war zone. One of the officers tackled the man near the sidewalk while the two others rushed in to help handcuff him. Even from where we stood, I could see the guy was painted in some kind of liquid. Nobody knew the full story yet, but the rumor mill was hard at work. Somebody said he'd killed his roommate, but somebody else swore that it was his landlord. No, it was a robbery gone bad. Wait, how does a robbery go this bad? Well, you see, every version ended up being crazier than the last. The firefighters disappeared into one of the apartments, and a couple of minutes later, they came back looking shell-shocked. One removed his helmet and just kind of stared at the ground. The rest leaned up against the truck and braced themselves. You didn't need anybody to tell you they found something horrific in there. Police taped off nearly the entire complex when the fire finally went out. An officer eventually came around asking everybody what they'd seen, and Tyler and I gave our statements. And what did he throw? Did you see it?
He threw a hand.
I think it was...
2 hands.
My voice was failing me. I think it was somebody's arm. He nodded without a word.
Bro, if it was me and I was there, I'd have been like, it was somebody's arm. He'd been confused. I'd be like, no, cuz it was somebody's arm, man. It was somebody's arm, Brody. Like, it was somebody. I'm not going back over there. You know what I'm saying? Or I just been like, it's nothing and just leave it. So this, you know what I'm saying? So I don't have to deal with this because they gonna ask me questions. I don't feel like that. So I might just leave and dip. They can ask the other people. You know what I'm saying? Because not somebody gonna say something. So you have 2 choices when the police, I'm saying, ask you what happened. You could just really act like you don't know what happened, just go about your day. Or you could be like, you could tell them what happened. Me, it depends. Or it depends at the time it happened and everything, if how I'm feeling that day. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, I'm saying, you've been doing stuff all day, whether you had to go to work, school, or whatever, and I just got off and it happened, yeah, I'm just going to be like, look, bro, I don't even know. I just heard some noise and all that and just went the other way. But, yeah, you know what I'm saying?
I was really hoping to be corrected. My mind was reeling. No, maybe it was just a skin-colored pool noodle that he had. No detached arms in this neighborhood.
No,
we weren't allowed back near our apartment for the rest of the day.
That
Parents
wasn't
collected kids wherever they could find them, and news vans began arriving in droves. Reporters interviewed witnesses while investigators carried evidence boxes out of the burned unit behind them. By evening, the truth had started to come out. A man had been killed inside one of the apartments. His body had been dismembered. The fires weren't accidental. They'd been started to destroy evidence. The part that none of us could understand was why. When police and neighbors arrived, the killer decided to throw the victim's severed arms at people outside. It was straight up right out of a horror movie. For weeks afterward, Kirksville didn't feel like home anymore. We found police tape in the bushes for months after that. Kids never stopped talking about it at the bus stop. It became this insane urban legend that I could never really get away.
I was trying to keep the rent down, bro. Like I don't want. I'm saying I live out here is too expensive. I don't want to go back to the hood. I want to live in here, but the rent get too high. That's what people trying to do.
From. In a town that
Come on,
small,
though.
almost everyone knew someone that had witnessed it. When I transferred to college, everybody wanted one of the newer residence halls. I couldn't blame them. The old ones were pretty gross and seriously dated. There was only one dorm that nobody wanted though, Swope Hall. Technically, it was still open. It was the oldest building on campus, an old brick structure that looked like it had belonged in another century. Most of the rooms were singles instead of doubles, so the university used it as a dumping ground for students who couldn't get along with other roommates, summer housing, and of course, the occasional overflow semester. On any given night, maybe a quarter of the rooms had lights on. During the day, it was just this old building. At night, it truly felt abandoned. The halls were unnaturally quiet and everything creaked. Naturally, everyone had a ghost story. Upperclassmen swore the dorm sat on top of the old Swope family estate, supposedly the university's earliest benefactors that donated the land after tragedy struck their family, and the residence hall had been built over the original foundation. Now, whether any of that was true depended on who you asked, but every version ended with Mary Swope. According to the legend, Mary developed a habit as a child of scratching paint from the walls and eating it. Nobody understood ended with Mary Swope. According to the legend, Mary developed a habit as a child of scratching paint from the walls and eating it. Nobody understood lead poisoning back then, so over the years she slowly changed. Legend. Mary's version ended with Mary Swope. According to the legend, Mary developed a habit as a child of scratching paint from the walls and eating it.
Eating paint.
Nobody understood lead poisoning back then, so over the years she slowly changed. The cheerful little girl now became paranoid, violent, and increasingly irrational. Doctors couldn't explain it, and eventually her wealthy parents decided hiding her was easier than helping her. They locked her in an upstairs bedroom, feeding her through the door while the rest of the family carried on downstairs. Holidays came and went without her, birthdays passed, and Mary spent years staring through the same window until one night she climbed out of it. Some versions claim that she slipped, but most insist that she jumped. Either way, she died in the yard below, and before long, the surviving Swope family disappeared from town as well. Like every campus legend, I figured 90% of it was complete nonsense. The problem was Swope Hall had a way of making you wonder about that other 10%. Seriously weird shit happened there all the time. One of my buddies, Eric, ended up living there after cycling through 3 different roommates his freshman year. One night he tells me, very seriously too, that he'd heard somebody walking the hallway almost every evening. I laughed, telling him, "You know you got neighbors, right?" "I checked," he said. "Every room?" "Every room. The footsteps stopped outside my door for a minute. I opened it when they didn't move on, and nobody was there. And there's nobody on my entire floor." After that conversation, I started taking notes. I heard about cold drafts, doors swinging shut, and endless marching up and down the halls. Resident assistants would joke about Mary making rounds. Maintenance workers would roll their eyes whenever somebody reported doors opening on their own. Even campus security had their own stories. One officer
look, if I know something open on its own, like, and if I know I'm not tripping, because you can know if you're tripping or not. If I know I'm not tripping, at that point, I would have just lived in a whole different campus. I don't know. I would have did something. Moved back in with parents. I would have did something. I'm not living in there. Like, if I know what's going on, I don't care if they call me crazy or not. I'm not living in there. If I see something moving, doors open on their own and nobody in there. No, we going. We going. See, sometimes when people say you gotta believe it though, but you gotta know when to believe. You gotta know who to believe though. That's the tricky part.
Ashley told us one time that
that's the tricky part.
If you think you see a little girl in there, don't chase her. So we kept our distance as much as we could. Some of us let Eric crash in our common rooms when he got a little too creeped out. Then Halloween rolled around. Students organized a haunted house fundraiser inside Swope Hall. They barely needed decorations. Halfway through the event, every fire alarm in the building suddenly activated. The dorm rooms evacuated while the campus police and fire departments searched every floor. They've never found any smoke or an electrical problem or maybe even a pulled alarm. No evidence of any kind of tampering. The fundraiser ended early. Afterward, I heard people saying they'd seen a girl in a white nightgown watching from one of the upstairs windows during the evacuation. A few nights later, I asked Eric if he wanted to see the basement. Everybody knew about it at this point. Half was still used as the laundry room, but the other stayed permanently locked behind this heavy metal door with a tiny square window. He knew I wanted to see it because it sounded like a place where somebody would conduct experiments or something, you know? So around midnight, we slipped downstairs. The laundry room hummed, but beyond that door, everything was silent. I stepped up to the window and looked inside. Just a narrow hallway that disappeared into the shadows. A small basement window barely let any moonlight through, washing everything in this weird green Coke bottle tint. 3 doors lined the right wall, 2 hanging halfway open. Inside sat old wooden bed frames, dressers, and broken desks that were buried in dust and cobwebs. There wasn't anything overtly frightening about it, but every instinct inside me screamed to look away. It almost felt like it was looking back at me directly. Eric quietly said to me, "See what I mean? It's creepy as shit." I nodded. The longer I stared, the more I was convinced somebody was standing just inside one of those open rooms. I leaned in until my reflection filled up the frame, when another face appeared behind mine. She was young, gaunt, long dark hair, and a white nightgown. I spun around so fast that I ran right into Eric.
I'd have been
The
gone.
place was empty. Eric was looking at me like I just lost my mind.
I would have been gone. I've been out of there. Always keep a tune on yo. I would have been out of there. He trying to talk to us. I feel like, bro, I saw something. I'm going. We out. Never like no. No, they
What's
over
up,
there
dude? What
talking.
happened? I thought I saw somebody behind me. When I looked back through the window, the hallway was of course empty again. Neither of us really spoke as we headed back upstairs, but halfway to the lobby, we heard something. "Please." We both froze. "Don't leave me." It was a little girl's voice. We sprinted the rest of the way to the exit.
Yeah,
we didn't mess around with Swope anymore after midnight, and frankly, I didn't even want to talk about it. Anytime someone brought up that fright shack, I would peel away and come up with an excuse to leave. Years later, I came back to campus for a reunion. Nearly every building had been renovated or replaced, but Swope Hall looked exactly the same. As I walked past, I glanced toward that upper window and saw a young girl sitting quietly in the corner of an empty room, knees pulled up to her chest, staring at the campus. I stopped long enough for another group of alumni to pass between us, and when they cleared, she was gone. Yeah, I know how all this sounds. I know it's hardly even something that might be believable to any of you listening, but I really genuinely wish I was making this story up.
Okay, so the first vid I give the first vid was pretty creative. I get a 9 out of 10. This vid was pretty creative, 8.5 out of 10. So first vid was this second vid had more suspense than the first vid. The first vid had a couple times where suspense, but it was good. It was creative. You know what I'm saying? It had a nice twist to it. The second one had a lot of suspense to it, like, cause it's just like all those type of horror stories, like I really would have been going. Like they I would have even went back to the campus. You know what I'm saying? I'd have made something up. Like, nah. But yeah, anyways, next vid.
My girlfriend and I were burnt out from living in her city. We made it our mission to save some money and move somewhere quieter. When we found the settlement tucked between the hills and the fields in Big Rain, it felt like the world had answered our prayers. There were maybe 40 houses spread across 2 dusty lanes, a small shop that opened whenever the owner felt like it. There was a shrine beneath a neem tree, and more dogs, chickens, and goats than people in the town limits. It felt like living near a zoo. By then, we lived there for 4 years now. We knew everybody's names, grudges, and their business. If somebody bought a new pressure cooker, everybody knew about it. If a cousin came to visit, everybody knew about it. If a truck rolled through after dark, the dogs would announce it from one end of the settlement to the other. The constant awareness helped us feel safe. Nothing would ever happen here without somebody noticing. My parents lived several hours away, and we planned to spend a few days with them. Before leaving, I stopped by our neighbor's house to ask Sanjay and Mira to keep an eye on ours. They were wonderful neighbors and some of the best friends that we'd made within the community. Their door was open, but nobody answered when I called. Instead, a man that I'd never seen stepped outside. He looked about 35 and dressed really strange for the region. When I asked where Sanjay was, he smiled. "Oh, they've gone to visit a family," he said. "I'm his cousin." That struck
I
me
see
as
where
odd.
this is going.
Sanjay had told me all about his family, and I had no recollection of this fellow. He noticed my hesitation and started to fill in the details. He named relatives that I'd personally met, mentioned a village that Sanjay visited often, and described recent illnesses that they both had just suffered from. This guy definitely knew my friends. There was no way to really question him. Even so, something about him just felt off. I explained to him that we'd be away for a few days and asked if he could keep an eye on our place too. He agreed without any kind of hesitation, then asked when we were leaving and how long we'd be gone for, and whether anybody else had a key if we had dogs. At the time, this all sounded pretty reasonable, so I told him everything. When I got home, my girlfriend asked why I'd been gone so long. Sanjay and Mira already left," I told her. "One of their cousins is staying there." She looked up from packing. "What cousin?" "I'm not sure. Apparently a family from his mother's side." "That sounds fishy." Yeah, I know, it does. We exchanged a look, both waiting for the other to suggest some kind of theory, but instead we finished packing. The bus was not going to wait, and my parents were expecting us. We told ourselves that we were just...
See, now these two probably don't expect nothing crazy. See, and nobody would. That's the thing. Nobody will expect nothing crazy from what they just questioned. You know what I'm saying? Cousin, okay, bro said he was a cousin, and he might not be a cousin, but they wouldn't really think much about it because they already did. You know what I'm saying? This is how it happens in real life too. So y'all gotta catch this on real life. Y'all see something is off. You gotta catch it, and you gotta dip. That's how y'all. Y'all get out these situations. Cause this real.
2 days later, my phone rang while out at my parents' home. The caller introduced himself as an officer from the police station nearest to our settlement.
"Are you in the village?"
No, sir."
"Good. Stay where you are.
What's going on, sir?"
Do not come back. Not today, not tomorrow, not for several weeks."
My girlfriend was staring at the phone in my hand. Across the table, my father looked up as well.
"They came for the settlement. It's a non-stop firefight."
At first, I thought he meant thieves, so I asked if any houses had been robbed. He started rambling about soldiers, an ambush, explosives, weapons, informants, and a pile of dead neighbors.
Whoa.
"Some men showed up in the village last week. They're part of a guerrilla warfare unit. The preliminary mission was to map the area, ID everybody who lived there and to what home belonged to them, then determine the best place to hide soldiers and weapons, and when would be the best time to strike."
Sanjay and Mira had never gone to visit relatives. They'd been tortured and murdered inside their own home before we left. As I stood there and talked to that man, my friends were dead just a few feet inside that door. He could have killed me at any moment, and I asked him to keep an eye on my house. I looked down and realized I'd spilled hot tea all over my lap, nearly simmering, but I couldn't even feel it. The settlement had been chosen because it was isolated and very easy to overwhelm. Someone informed the authorities before the plan could actually unfold, allowing police and soldiers to move into position before the main attack began. Over the next several days, the story came together through police updates, survivors, and pure speculation. The attack began shortly after midnight. Sleeper cells who had lived there for years stepped out into the streets with automatic rifles, signaling for more to enter from a tree line. Gunfire erupted near the shop before patrolling soldiers returned fire. People I shared meals with were suddenly carrying rifles and shouting terroristic threats. The man who once had helped repair my water pipe was hauling ammunition and radios from sacks of grain.
Bro wasn't playing.
It wasn't a shock that war had found us in the village. War is everywhere. What terrified me was that they were friends and neighbors. For 4 years, I'd shared conversations, borrowed tools, accepted favors. They were just biding time, waiting for the war cries. And not just for a few days or for a week, for years. They waited for enough ordinary people to settle there that our murder would make the news. Folks moving to find peace, like my girlfriend and I, were just gunpowder for them. We stayed at my parents' for nearly a month, most of which we barely slept. We were kind of expecting an army to come marching down the street there. I replayed that conversation at Sanjay's door so many times in my own memory that it began turning against me. Had he been blocking my view through the door? Was there any chance they were still alive while we spoke? Could I have saved them? When we were finally allowed to return, 2 police officers escorted us in a Jeep. The settlement looked normal from a distance, but the closer we got, the more obvious the damage was. The shop had been turned into a bunker with cinder blocks and sandbags. Bullet holes scarred every single building.
Oh, World War
Many
II
roofs
up
had
in
collapsed
there,
from
like,
explosives, and the neem tree beside the shrine had been shredded by gunfire. Our house was still standing, as were the neighbors. They both have relatively little damage, but most of our belongings were also untouched, though drawers had been rifled through and papers were scattered. I walked next door, and Sanjay and Mira's house had been locked with a police chain, but I could still see through the front window. The evidence had been removed, but there were bloodstains here and there. I felt like I betrayed them, robbed them of their lives. My knees buckled as I replayed that conversation in my head again. My girlfriend found me there and quietly took my hand. She knew there was nothing she could say. We packed only what we could carry that afternoon: clothes, documents, photographs, a few kitchen supplies, and the brass lamp that my mother had given us when we first moved there. Everything else was disposable. Before we left, one of the officers quietly warned me not to discuss the investigation openly. Some suspects were still missing and others had not been charged yet. Cases were being built and they still weren't sure who all the informants were. As we drove away, I looked back through the rear window. The settlement looked peaceful again. From that distance, nothing suggested soldiers had fought through their streets or that neighbors had helped map a killing floor. And that illusion haunts me. Not everybody had been involved. Good people died, others lost everything. But enough of that settlement had lived in a second life that I could never separate the innocents from the guilty ever again. There's bad people in the world out there that would only give you smiles.
Okay, so that one was alright, you know what I'm saying? I get that one like a 7.5 out of 10. Didn't create a lot of suspense. That wasn't more of a horror. I mean, it kind of was a horror, but it was more of like a saying World War II type horror. It was cool though, creative though. So actually, I'm gonna give it an 8 because of creativity. I'm starting to like these videos I'm watching. They're really creative. Like I'm liking that creative, but we also want to be scared. Like I want something that's gonna scare the crap out of me. You feel me? But anyways, yeah, it was a good one though, for sure, for sure. So we are now about to go to our next and last vid.
Porch lights. If you were from there, you fit in. If you weren't, people treated you like an outsider. Austin wasn't from there. He was a 21-year-old soldier from Fort Campbell with the 101st Airborne. He came into town for a party. A group of soldiers showed up at his house while the parents were away, and sometime that night there was tension between the soldiers and some local guys. Later, people said that Austin had texted his girlfriend about problems with the local boys, and mentioned stepping in if his friends needed him. The official story got strange though. Investigators said Austin left the party disoriented and ended up at Pleasant View Nursery in Florist along Highway 41A.
Okay, where's
They
this
said he
going?
broke in, ransacked the place, ate pizza, went through the register, used the bathroom, and ultimately disturbed a wasp nest. According to that account, the wasp then chased him onto the road where he was struck by multiple vehicles. Yeah, I know it's an unusual story, but
For sure.
it was one that spread around town. Even then, a lot of people had questions. His wallet and phone were found inside the nursery, sitting on a desk in the
He was
middle of the
possessed or
destruction.
something.
People seem to talk about that and the lack of fingerprints or footprints tying him to the scene. The autopsy had even more red flags. Austin had seemingly never been stung by a bee or even a wasp, so what really happened? Austin called the police several times, saying he was in the woods. He told the dispatcher somebody was chasing him and trying to kidnap him, and he insisted he wasn't crazy. While these calls came through, it was apparent that Austin was driving and then walking somewhere. He sounded disoriented and very out of breath. On the final call, he flipped the script, said he was fine, said he found everybody, and wished the dispatcher a good night. 14 minutes later, he ran onto Highway 41A, waving for help, and was struck by a teenage driver. She stopped and called 911. While she waited for emergency crews, 2 more vehicles hit him. He died there on the highway. His family has never accepted the official explanation, so they hired a private investigator and had the 911 recordings analyzed. According to those reports, there were other voices in the background of several calls. Most were impossible to understand, but one phrase stood out. A man's voice appeared to say,
"Tell her."
It was reportedly captured during the final call, and one where Austin suddenly claimed that everything was fine. For a kid like me, this was evidence of something else. It was all we talked about back then. After that, the rumors only grew. People questioned not just the timeline, but the lack of evidence and really everything. Some believe Austin had been running from somebody long before he reached that highway. Others believe the official investigation had missed or ignored important details. Nothing ever settled the questions. Many believe there was a direct connection between the botched investigation and the local police department. I remember driving past the nursery after that and looking at it differently. During the day, it looked like any other local business. At night, it was impossible not to think about what had happened there. I pictured Austin somewhere in the woods calling 911, insisting somebody was after him while dispatchers tried to figure out where he was. Then, I'd remember that voice, the one that said,
"Tell her."
If he was alone, why is somebody speaking? If he was attacked by wasps, then why isn't there a single puncture on his body? The questions piled up and no answers ever came. I'm not going to speculate on what happened to Austin, but I will list some of the facts. He was a trained soldier and part of the 101st Airborne Division. If you're not familiar with your military spec ops, let me fill you in. Austin was one half of a bad motherfucker to be part of the 101st Division. In my mind, there's no chance of a backwoods Billy badass getting him on the run, so what exactly happened? Was it just drugs and alcohol getting out of hand, or was he up against a group of legitimately scary individuals? I hope, for Austin's sake, one day we'll finally know.
Probably like a mix of both. Okay, y'all, so that was the last one. I give that one an 8 out of 10. Very creative, had my suspense up, but saying it wasn't no crazy scary, nothing crazy scary, but definitely was creative, had my suspense up. I did mess with it. So, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and your boy M. Dot out.